Did you ever want to have your own comic strip, create your own characters in your own cartoon world, and then get it published in the newspaper? Well, it's a worthwhile dream, and it could happen. Hi, I'm Bruce Blitz, and welcome to Cartooning with Blitz. And that's what we'll be doing today, creating our own comic strip. And I'll even show you a trick on how to get it in the newspaper. Now, for our feature of the day, I'm so excited about this. A special guest cartoonist is coming by. You don't want to miss this one. And for our doodle trick portion today, from the word talk, a lot of guys talking. It's a noisy one. Stay tuned for that. I know you'll like it. Are you ready? All right, let's draw cartoons. Now let me show you a comic strip that I've done. And it starts with a fella in a store. And he's standing there with the salesman, and it says, he's saying, it's guaranteed not to shrink. It's the shrink-proof sweater sale. And the guy's all happy about this. And in the next panel, he gets caught in the rain. He says, uh-oh, rain. And in the next panel, his wife, who's cooking, says, did you buy that new sweater? And he says, yeah, they were right. And the last panel, it's a sight gag, and she's shocked. He says, it didn't shrink. And as you can see, it did the opposite. It's much bigger. So, that's the strip. And I'll show you how I laid that one out, and we'll do it together. But first, I'd like to show you a few balloon tricks. Now, a balloon is what the dialogue comes in, like we just saw. So, let's get started, and we'll do a few of those. And they help to tell your story. They're very important. Let's start with, if someone was very cold, the balloon could look like this, like it's got icicles hanging. And the pointer, which shows who's doing the speaking, could be a little bit longer. The person could be over here. And then in here, it could be, it's one apostrophe there. It's cold, and you have a couple C's. And because of the balloon like that, it helps to drive it home a little bit. Now this, you've seen this probably a lot of places. And these bubbles here show that this is a thought balloon. This means somebody's thinking. And this, instead of a pointer, shows who's doing the thinking. And you know what? Inside, you don't have to always use words. You can use a picture. Like here's some money. Maybe somebody's thinking about money. Okay, let's do another one. Now, right down here, if someone is speaking very, very softly, you make the balloon with dotted lines. And for some reason, you make the words real small. Shh. For some reason, we think of that as being soft. Let's do another one. Well, of course, this is the old splash, pow. This is not really or bam. This is not really a balloon, but it's a sound effect, and you see it a lot in the panels. Okay, another one could be if something was coming from an electronic gimmick, like a computer or a radio, it wouldn't be a balloon, but it would be like that, and inside I could say, today's weather. And that helps to show that it's something electronic as opposed to a person speaking. Okay, now let's get started, and we'll lay out the comic strip. And it starts with a rough. And a rough is just that. It's just how I jotted down the idea. And it shows how the gag gets told. This is where I decide which dialogue I'm going to use to tell the story. And I've even shown how to lay out the gag. Now, it's not exactly how it may have ended up, but it's pretty close. And if I have any notes to make, I make them down there. Now, I'm going to tape this down. And it's just for reference. I just glance at it. And then what I have to do is I lay out the whole thing with guidelines. And these guidelines, which I do in pencil, are for the dialogue. And if I do that, this way the lettering doesn't go all over the place. And I try to center the lettering. That looks better too. Then I pencil the whole thing in with the dialogue and the cartooning. And I've left the last panel out on purpose because let's do that one together. So I'll tape that down. And we'll work together on this one. Right about there. All right, now I'm going to use a pen like this, and this pen has got a nice thick and thin point. With a little bit of hand pressure, I can get a thick and thin line. It's a marker, and markers are good and markers are bad. Markers have their good points and bad points because their points don't stay consistent for very long, and the ink doesn't stay permanent forever, but they're fun to use, and you can keep going as opposed to a dip pen. And a lot of cartoonists use dip pens too. Your work's more permanent. Okay, let's get started right here. And before I get started with that, I'm going to pencil in the rest of it. And he says here, it didn't shrink. it. And as I said, center dialogue looks better. Okay, and then the balloon, which is pointing to him. And he'll be over here, and let's do him right here. And his expression is, he's wondering, like, what happened here. And here's his sweater, and we're just going to make that real funny with some wavy lines like this. And people are always asking me, where do you come up with ideas? Because that seems to be the toughest thing to come up with, because without an idea, there's no reason to draw. Here's his wife. Let's give her a pointy nose. And a great way to come up with ideas is I use the calendar, because a calendar has got all kinds of events. It's got Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduation, summertime, spring cleaning, barbecues, and now let's ink this in. And each holiday has got its own built-in set of circumstances that you can think of gags for, and props. Barbecue, you need a barbecue, and let me see what else you would need for that. What starts the flames and all that, the utensils. You can have a lot of fun with those. Now, the best way to do it is to just be alert. The latest fashions, listen to the radio, watch television, and be in tune to what's going on around you. And lots of humor that can be gotten from those things. All right, now let's do the lettering. New computers, all the gadgets. It didn't shrink. Pretty funny. Okay, here's his face. And you notice by a little bit of variation of my hand pressure, I get a thick and a thin line. And I think that just creates a little more interest for the viewer. Watch, see? Starts out small and then gets a little bit heavier. Now watch this one. Thick, thin, thick, thin. I think that looks better, don't you? Same thing for the middle here. Stripe. This poor guy. He never expected this to happen. And here's the balloon. And the pointer. Now, for the border. The borders can be done with rulers, or you can do them freehand. It all depends on your cartooning style. And if you're doing freehand, they don't have to look perfect. That's the whole idea of it. Get a nice loose look to your work like this. Do the bottom of the sweater. And that takes care of the last panel. Now we're only going to do the last panel. Now, once you've finished all your inking, if you're using marker, you don't have to wait too long for it to dry. If you're using dip pen, you do. And once it is dry, I'm using my kneaded rubber eraser. It's like a piece of clay, and you can knead it like a piece of dough or clay. And it cleans itself, and you can shape it to reach into a hard-to-reach place. It doesn't leave a lot of crumbs. It's a good eraser. Okay, now we're going to erase it. And the pencil lines leave. The ink lines stay. And there's your finished strip on the last panel. Of course, you do this to all of them, and then you have your finished comic strip. All right, now, do you remember in the beginning of the show I said I'd show you how to get into the newspapers? Well, I'll show you a neat little trick. Now, this is the original strip, all finished up, that I showed you before. A lot of people think that the cartoonist's work, the actual size, you see it in the newspaper, but as you can see, it's more than double the actual size, reproduced size. And what I've done is I've gone to a copy machine and reduced the comic strip down to the size you'd see in the newspaper. So reduce the strip like this, and then get a hold of a newspaper, the comic section, and I cut my strip out and I glued it right over somebody else's strip, and I won't tell you who that was. And of course it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's on white paper and the rest of the newspaper is done in newsprint. But then what I've done is I take the whole newspaper like this and I put it down into a copy machine again on large paper, and then I get a printout of the whole thing, and it's all the same color now, and you can see how your work stands up next to the prose, and that's how you get it in the newspaper. It's a lot of fun. Next up, the feature of the day. Boy, I'll tell you, I love the funnies, you know. And one of my favorite strips is Hagar the Horrible. And he really is horrible, you know. Did you ever see how, like, him and his wife, how they get along, some of the things he does to her? I'll tell you, Horrible was the right name for this comic strip. And then you see, like, all the things he does when he goes into all these villages and everything. Hagar the Horrible, I'm telling you, sometimes well, I mean, he's a nice guy. It's not that he wasn't a nice guy. Anyway, we're here with Chris Brown. How you doing, Chris?
How are you doing, Bruce?
The artist that draws Hagar the Horrible in the newspapers. It's so great to have you here. I can't believe you showed up in the studio today.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, you've been drawing Hagar the Horrible for how many years now?
Since 1972, I started to assist my father on the strip, and since 1989, I've been drawing the strip pretty much on my own.
Okay, now your father created the strip, and then you added to the strip, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was a typical apprentice. I started with emptying wastebaskets and helping fill in black areas on the strip and stuff like that, and I grew to write gags, and then more gags, and eventually started doing some of the drawing and more, and now I'm wearing the hat.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Well, I see no resemblance between you and the character, but
is a little bit. My dad left me his beard.
He did.
You know?
Well, that's
yes,
nice.
yes.
Well, I can't grow one. I've been trying for years, but it doesn't work. Well, I'll tell you, it's a great family business to go into.
Yep.
Now, how many papers is Hagar seen in?
Well, Hagar, thank goodness, right now is in 1,900 newspapers around the world. It's in about 1,000 papers in the United States.
How many people does that come out to?
About 135 million. It's translated into 13 languages, and it's seen all over the world.
Well, don't worry.
Don't.
One day the strip's going to take off. Don't,
yes.
Stick with it. I'll tell you, stick with it. It'll
Hopefully,
be fine. I'll tell you what. Let's take a look at some of the strips right now. Boy, those characters are so great. You know, they're so distinctive. Let's draw those characters now, okay, Chris? And explain to us how you construct the head and what goes on, okay? Start with, of course, the lovable bad guy.
With Hagar.
Hagar.
Okay. Well, Hagar is a Viking businessman who's sacking and looting is his specialty. And he has he of course wears the helmet. And he has a beautiful nose, just like a beautiful little orange. And of course Vikings need to have good vision, so he has these two little raisins. They're actually, if you look at them in the strip, they're perfect little raisins for eyes.
Right.
It's a little bloodshot because, you know, Vikings party. And he's got the beard. He's got the beautiful red beard with occasional gray hair brought on by family life more than sacking and looting.
Sure.
And
now that's interesting. What you're doing there, that's a little shadowing effect.
little shadowing.
I like that. That really brings the thing into a nice curve.
Yeah, and that's also, we'd like to sort of put in a little bit of Gustave Doré or Heinrich Clay, a little shadowing, a little Sir John Tenniel, a little inking technique.
Sure.
And of course I'm using a marker here, but in the strip it would all be done with a dip pen.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. We're using marker, of course, for television. We want our friends at home to see it. But you use a dip pen, is that correct?
Yes.
With a waterproof ink?
Waterproof ink, and basically, here I'll show you, I use Higgins ink, which I leave out overnight.
Okay, now why is that?
Because I like it to become thick and gunky like a stew. I really
okay.
do. You know, you like to let some of the water evaporate out of the thing, and then as you do that, it gets a nice gunky consistency.
And
And
it goes on the page better for you? Is that
it
why
goes
you
on
like
the
that?
page better. And another trick that I've learned about inking is to wash the pen nibs when you first get them, because pen nibs are stored with vegetable oil sprayed on them so that
okay.
they don't rust in the box. And if you take a pen nib right from the art store and start to
Put it right on the salad.
put it right on
No,
the
no, that's not, no. Okay.
it'll a big glob of ink will roll right off the pen onto your
I
page.
see, okay,
If you
okay.
take off that, it will you get rid of that problem. You
That's
know?
interesting.
So,
That's a good
yeah.
tip.
Yeah.
Now you're drawing Helga.
There's Helga, yes,
This is
yes.
Hager's wife.
Hager's
And-
wife, based on my mother.
Is that right?
My father based all the cartoon characters on family members.
I see.
Helga was based on my my mother, and the gags nowadays I base on my wife, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
And Hager was based on himself. My father was a big man with a big red beard.
Now, who gets the best of who? Hager or Helga?
Always Helga. You'll
That's
notice
right.
if you ever look at the comic strip, Helga's horns are just a little bit bigger than Hager's, and
There's
that's
a reason for that.
that's why, you know, she's the real boss in the house.
Okay, now there's another character in the strip that is kind of his little cohort of Hagar's, and that's Lucky Eddie.
Lucky Eddie, the least lucky Viking. You know,
Okay.
there's that saying: if I didn't have bad luck, I would have no luck at all.
Luck at all, right?
And Lucky Eddie was based on my father's brother, Edmund.
All right.
Edmund Brown, who never had very much luck. But we loved him dearly, and he was just a great guy, very much like Lucky Eddie, a nice, affable, sweet guy.
Right, he means well, and he just doesn't seem to come out on top, does he?
He means well, and no, nothing ever quite works out. And so here's Lucky Eddie, and
What is that helmet? That is a great helmet he's wearing.
he's obviously been eating too many sunflower seeds. There's a flower popping out of the top. And
that's great.
the
That is
helmet
great.
is a funnel, you know,
okay.
sort of a little touch of the Tin Woodsman.
Right,
you know?
okay. It's just such distinctive character design. I really enjoy them. Okay, who else have we got in the strip? Oh, okay, we have Honey.
Honey
is their daughter.
Honey is the daughter, and Honey, my dad's concept of Honey was that she was going to be sort of a Viking Valley girl, a little bit of a dim bulb. Now,
Okay.
as the strip has gone on and we've all become more progressive, she's become brighter and more intelligent. Now she's a Viking career woman, and she is trying to hold down a job and also build a family and a home for herself.
She's got very big eyes.
Very big eyes, giant eyes like headlights, and there they are, and a little tiny bit of a neck, and her dress is made out of pure Viking iron, and she's beautiful
long hair.
beautiful
Look at
long
that. I
hair,
love that.
which I love because I can almost draw that hair in my sleep.
I love your style of drawing. You have this nice broken line that you have with your
Yes.
style here, and then you come in with the hair, a nice flowing line. It's just
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Really, very beautiful.
Well, and
Okay.
it saves on ink. You
It
know?
does save-
You don't have to use all the ink.
You have to
know?
be very careful. I understand that. Okay, another character. Okay, I know, Lute. Now, Lute is somebody who is Honey's. That's her boyfriend.
Yes, Lute was based on my brother, who is now a cartoonist. My brother, Chance Brown, does High and Lois, and Lute is a wandering minstrel, and he got into the strip because my brother was a wandering rock musician back in the 70s when Dad came up with the strip. So there's Lute, and here is his panache, his feather coming off the back. And I would draw the lute itself, but it's out in the shop. So,
Chris, could you give our friends at home a tip on how to create their own comic strip? Any just, I know it's tough, there's a lot that goes into it, but just any one tip that you can give them in the way of success?
well, you know, I would say that as far as coming up with an idea, the best advice I was ever given was by Charles Schulz, who said, draw what you love.
Charles Schulz, of course, from Peanuts fame.
Of Peanuts, and what a great man he is. And he told me to forget the gimmicks, draw from your heart, draw something that you love, And that's certainly what my dad did when he created Hager. And Hager has grown to be an extra member of our family. Here's a character
That's a son.
called Hamlet,
Okay.
and my father based Hamlet on myself because
Okay.
I was a vegetarian when the strip started, and
All right.
he thought it would be very funny to have a vegetarian son of a Viking. So,
That's a great character.
and there's Hamlet.
Now, we have a scoop on the show today.
Yes.
Our viewers don't know anything about this, but you have a new strip. Is that
I
right?
have a brand new comic strip.
With a dog.
Yes,
And his name?
with Charles Schultz's Syndicate, United Features.
Okay.
The dog's name is Duncan.
Duncan, okay.
And
And you're drawing Duncan right now for
I'm
us.
drawing Duncan right now, and he's based very much on Charles Schultz's advice to me, draw what you love. Well, there's nothing much in this life I love more than my own little dog, Macduff, who's a little black Scotty dog.
Ah,
And
very cute.
I love this dog, and I've done a comic strip based on this dog on the premise of what if one day I woke up and the dog started to talk?
all right.
And how it would change my life, how it would change the dog's life. And the dog is Duncan is an attempt to get back to the way comic strips used to be done. There are a lot of very cynical, cold comic strips out there. It's like the whole humor of the country is going in a cynical direction.
Okay.
I'm
I
trying
know
to
what you mean.
swim in the opposite direction.
And you're saying that maybe this is a little on the warmer side, and a
little
more
warmer.
family-oriented. Well, that's
More family-oriented, more for kids and their parents.
And their parents. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, we could stay here all day, and I could just watch you draw. You have such a great style of drawing, and I love your work, and I want to thank you for
I
coming
love
today.
your work, man.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you very much, and the best of luck with Duncan in the future.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. And now, next up, stay tuned for cartoon doodle tricks. This was great. Thank you so
This
much.
is
I
great.
can't believe this came out really good.
Yeah.
Okay, now today's doodle trick is a lot of talk. It's the noisiest doodle trick I've ever drawn. None of my friends stopped by. How you doing, guys?
Hi.
Okay, ready? Let's get started. And we'll write the word talk. And you'll see what I mean. L-K. Okay, almost ran out of room. All right, ready? We start with this fellow over here. We'll put some eyes in. And this becomes his nose. And this is his mouth. And there's his teeth. And there's his facial outline. His ears. Blah, 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 because he's talking. Some hair. This guy right here, let's see. We look at the A and we put an eye right there. And let's see, we put a nose right there and make this his mouth. And he's talking away. Some hair on him. Some teeth. All right, let's see this fellow here. We'll have him looking right at us. You know what? Let's make this a woman. And her mouth is open talking. And her eyes are shut. And let's give her a fluffy hairdo. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of talk now for the K. Let's see. A nose up here. And this is the mouth wide open. Some teeth. An ear. And more talk. What do you think of that, folks? You like that?
Yeah.
Okay, this guy here is saying, time's up, because we're out of time. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it at home. And for our Blitz tip today, when you want to learn something, you have to stick at it, don't you? Otherwise, you're not going to get better. Another way to say that is, they that try again and again, guess what? They do better and better and better and better and better and better. I'm Bruce Blica saying, thanks for being with me, and help me out, guys.
Keep on cartooning.